you want me to do the whole thing or just tell you the bits?
Oh, tell me if you need to know.
Well, what I was going to say is orange.
Yeah.
And orange.
Yeah.
Light orange. And yellow lifts it, and I think this should be a dark like that. The writing works, that's fine. And that kind of works. I mean, you don't actually have to go and outline all round it, but if you are going to have a line, I think it's whatever. If you're going to have a line, it's got to be a dark one. Otherwise, don't do a line. Yeah, that's it really. I think the only other thing, well, my one's brighter. You know, it's a brighter red, it's a lighter blue, so there's more zing to it. But I think I'd say the same thing about the black, except it's not as critical here because it's all lighter, more or less, you see. I think the problem here is this is dark and that's not, so
yeah.
That shows it up, whereas here it's all more, well, actually there's some couple of darker bits, but that, you see that job and that is all grey, so therefore it is more acceptable. Because the thing about what we're doing is there's this consistency of the line. The tone of the line, that's the whole thing about it, that's what gives it a character. And you can mess around with it completely, of course. You can make it all grey, which I think does actually work, but it's where it's darker, it doesn't. Because where it's darker, you kind of want everything to be dark, whereas if it was all the grey, including here,
yeah,
I think that would work actually. I think the grey is kind of quite attractive. But it's the dark bits that aren't, so either everything's got to be dark or everything's got to be grey. That's my... That's the whole thing. I think you know, it's kind of easy really doing art criticism because you notice it. It's just you've got to say what you see, and I think the arms work fine. In fact, I think if you change them, it would actually be worse rather than better. It'd be messy, be really messy. The eyes and the ribs when they're light grey, as I say, the only thing I actually don't like it when it's the darker one. I think the light grey works really nicely actually, funnily enough. It probably would there if this was light grey as well, then that would get away with that, but it's the contrast that's the problem. It's the lack of uniformity, or whatever it is. If it's a middle grey, then everything's got to be middle grey. Let me just check that out. Yeah, I mean, that face could work. It works by itself, it's just when you've got the dark on the lettering it doesn't. It looks faded, you know. If the lettering was light grey as well, then it would be stylistically coherent, it would all work together. So again, as I've just said, I think it has to be one or the other. Depends.
right.
Because it doesn't really stand out much. You know, more robust, and then it will work. And my lines are thicker and darker, and also, of course, my red is lighter, so it's the black stands out. Yeah. No, I was very carefully judged
Mm.
to get everything just right.
Yeah.
I didn't want a blue that was going to blare out. I didn't want it insipid. It had to be sufficiently vibrant to work with the red. And again, the red had to, I wanted the red to be a little bit flashy, but not glaring, not day glow or anything. But and because it had to be ready for the show, which was called the show was called The Resignation of Sir Nicolas Serota. And there was a wall we had, I suppose about getting on for the size of that wall, perhaps a little bit less, where all the artists did something, or most of them did something on that theme. So we had a wall. I got Ella's one that she did. It was quite a nice watercolour with a horse upside down hanging from the ceiling.